Welcome back to my trip where I looped around the contiguous US. After failing to do so last year, this time I returned with a vengeance. This is The Big Loop 2. Where we left off, I was heading south along the east coast and reached the Florida Keys, ready to visit the southernmost point and seriously evaluating my life that led me here. Starting the day out with what's important in life. Lizards. An early morning drive to the Keys was just what I needed. After driving through all of Florida yesterday, a slower paced drive in a tropical paradise felt right. Since almost nobody gets up before like 10 around here, I was able to enjoy the scenery without someone right up on my ass. Driving through the Keys is such a unique experience. The size and amount of bridges truly makes it feel like a highway of the sea. I still had to drive like an hour and a half this morning because the Keys are pretty long, it turns out, but eventually I reached Key West, where I saw all these cool things like chicken, tree, and the start of US Highway 1. I was still pretty stressed out even though I was in Key West, and the only thing I needed to do that day was visit the southernmost point. Must be all the crushing weight of modern day existence and driving several hours almost every day for about 3 weeks. But surely I can ignore that for a little bit. Time to walk to the southernmost point. Maybe because it was early in the day, but the line wasn't too bad, and once again I got someone to take my picture. Second extreme point of the trip down. Now my goal was to find a beach. Luckily it says there's a beach just down the street. My goal is to find a beach not covered in sargassum. Sargassum is a word that just feels right to say in an old sailor pirate voice. I know you just tried it out. Even further down the way, there was this beach which still had a bit of sargassum, but it would do. Or not. It's a lot of warnings. I guess I'll find something else to do. After wandering around for a little bit, I decided to visit the Ernest Hemingway house. I don't actually know too much about him. I know he wrote some books, some of which I've heard of, and then he shot himself. The house itself is pretty stuffy, so I made a beeline for the felines. Ernest Hemingway was given a polydactyl cat by a ship captain named Snow White. The cat, not the captain. Polydactyl mean they have more toes than usual, and supposedly all the cats on the property are now its descendants, but there are probably other ancestors. Well, I mean, there had to be at least one other, but you know. You can pet them, but they're just napping around, so I tried not to bother them. This one here was a large lad, to say the least. Fine, I'll talk about the house a little bit. Apparently he wrote over half of his works here, including some I've heard of. Alright, back to the cats. I couldn't actually tell how many toes they had. I wasn't trying to be invasive like that. Apparently only about half are polydactyl, but there's 59 of them, so at least one of these has got to be polydactyl. There is also a cat cemetery since there have been so many cats scampering around throughout the years. I would recommend you pause to read all of them and comment your favorite. My favorites are Bubba, US1, and Princess Six Toes. Also, I don't know if they're allowed to wander off property or if they're like, yeah, I don't know, why bother? They got everything they need there, you know? I didn't see any cats beyond the walls. Now I want to find an actual beach not covered in rotting seaweed. Word on the street is that Fort Zachary Taylor State Park is the best beach in Key West, and yeah, you gotta pay for it. It does have a fort, which isn't really what people are here for, but I figured I'd wander around it for a little bit, really get my money's worth. It provides some nice shade and a bit of a vantage point, and more importantly, there's iguanas! Okay, I'll talk about the beach. It's a beach. This point here is actually further south, and you know, the further south moved to those rocks, but you know. None of the extreme point monuments are actually at the extreme point, you know? Yeah, the beach is nice, but I hate it here. The air was molesting me. I had loose skin from walking with sand between my toes. I went for a swim and cut my foot on the only rock there. Alright, time to head back to my campsite.
Is that a blimp? One of the last blimps? Or an airship? A dirigible? Or a zeppelin, perhaps? Driving back from Key West, it's kind of a vibe. I'm not good at island time. Where it's like, oh, we're just kind of lackadaisically moving along. We're kind of sludging. I'm not in a rush, but I'm like, I'm trying to get from point A to point B. You know what I mean? I'm unable to relax, mainly because it's sticky. Guess at this point, it means I'm finally heading in the direction of home. So, onward we go. It only gets more north from here.
Also, what I thought were giant spiders last night were crabs.
Why are you moving like a fucking spider, dude? Chill.
All that's left to do is watch the sunset and go to bed. Do not go camping in Florida. Look at all that.
Like, that's just from this morning. That's before I had time to get bug spray. Like, come on, man. Not even really showing up. Oh god. Holy shit. What the fuck? Let's get the fuck out of here, man. Day 23?
When I woke up, my arms were swarmed with these little gnats, and now I have the skin patterning of a pygmy seahorse. I've probably never been happier to leave a campsite in my life. Did you know some places in the US, the colloquial term for raining while the sun is shining is called the devil's beating his wife? One last stop in the Keys, Big Lobster.
So, I just spent 2 nights camping in a swampy spot up the Keys, so I was like, what would be fun? What if I went to an even bigger swamp? So we're in the Everglades. This is what all of Florida used to look like, I guess. How did this become, the 4th most populated state? I think it's 4th. 3rd? It's in the top 5. All the insects here are massive. It feels like I'm wearing the air.
I live in an area with some big beasts, so I was prepared for gators, but not for grasshoppers the size of my hand. These are eastern lubber grasshoppers, and they were everywhere here.
I like bugs, but don't fly at me, fuck you.
I'd never been somewhere that had noticeable bug roadkill before. The road was seasoned with bug corpses, and I feel like they must not be appetizing at all for the local wildlife. The Everglades are truly flat. I thought I'd seen flat, but this was flat. Even the ocean has waves. The pass I crossed had an elevation of 3 feet. It's strange that there is less land between my feet and sea level than there is between my head and my feet. I guess that's true on most beaches, but I was a decent amount inland. I did see this magnificent creature, and when I stepped outside to observe it, I was swarmed with bugs. They weren't even trying to bite me, really. They were just flying at me. The Everglades might be the most inhospitable place I've ever been. The whole time I had this feeling that this is not somewhere I'm supposed to be. Then the first gator I saw was actually a baby, which is kind of crazy. Might have been a crocodile, I'm not sure. Florida has both. Point is, I saw a baby gator. Eventually I reached the visitor center, and it was a center for visitors. Some dioramas, information, and views of the water. I do feel like not going out on a boat, like I missed out on a huge part of the Everglades. Apparently you can camp out on a platform way out the way, which sounds tempting since there aren't as many bugs out there. I did stop at one trail just to hike for a bit and to say I did, but again, it's a swamp and the air is heavy. On the way back, I spotted another softshell turtle and tried to scare it out of the road, but it wouldn't budge, so hopefully it was fine. I saw a sign for a historic missile site and thought, that sounds like it could be interesting, but it wasn't. Lastly, I stopped at another visitor center and walked around, looked at some fish, and hoped that I would see a full-grown gator. I kind of thought they'd be everywhere here, like you'd have to worry about tripping over them, but I didn't see them once in the park.
Classic Google Maps taking me down some whack-ass fucking nowhere road.
I love driving through random Florida neighborhoods. So, this is the Void. I knew that Florida was the flattest state going in, but it's astonishing. Prairie states ain't got nothing on the level of flatness here. I made one last stop that day at Big Cypress National Preserve because surely they would have some gators. I saw a lot of gar and some other fishes, but no gators. Turns out I'm blind and there's one just like right there. Just down the path there was a whole horde of gators. Actually, I don't know what the term for a group of gators is. A congregation. Huh. Yeah, I don't think I'm guessing that one at trivia night. Seeing a taxidermy gator might be the closest experience to seeing a live one out of any animal, except for maybe sloths, but I don't think I've seen a taxidermied sloth. I'm not going near them, but unless provoked, they don't do a lot but bask. Although I did witness one swimming around. Inside the visitor center, they asked the bold question, can women wrestle alligators? I mean, they can, but I feel like they'd prefer not to. Seems like one of those why women live longer than men type situations. Finally, I passed through some more cypress swamp before reaching Naples and finally taking a real shower.
So, understandably, I've hit a wall. Today I'm driving all the way back up through Florida and then through the edge of the Panhandle, so this will probably be my longest day of driving yet. I think at some point in here I needed a day where I'm just like, alright, I'm doing nothing. I'm not even going to the beach, because the beach, it's hot. I gotta worry about bugs, and I gotta worry about sunscreen, and I gotta worry about sand getting everywhere. I just need a day where I do nothing.
Not a lot to say here. I drove up north through Florida. This was probably the most interesting thing that happened all day.
Come on. Yeah, let's go! 200,000!
Real top-notch content here.
Vasectomy.
I did step outside at least once, so it's not all car footage today. Back to the slog.
What do you think they sell their Confederate RVs? Oh no, that's just some guy's house. Alright.
Wow, look, there's hills. Crazy. Hills is a strong word. Now, I'd seen so many billboards for Florida Orange World, so I figured I should stop at least one. It was about what I expected. Big touristy shop, lots of Florida and orange specific products. The billboards also mentioned baby gators and think they need a new tank. They need a new tank.
The orange place sold oranges alone, so I got an orange, but I might have made the wrong decision because this one's skin just did not want to come off. This might be a rough orange to eat, but it's a really good orange. This is the most cursed way of eating an orange too. Just monkey time. You're meant to just fucking bite into that shit.
Driving through Florida is so weird. It truly distorts time because I had been on the road for 6 hours, but I did not realize it. The clouds in the distance were starting to look concerning though.
Flash flood warning. I haven't really dealt with too much of that. So I've gone through the 5 stages of grief, honestly, during this trip. And now I'm at acceptance. Like, flash flood ahead, like, I guess today might be more interesting than I thought. But also, one more thing, finally out of Eastern time, back in Central. I mean, it's not like Central's my favorite, but it's better than Eastern. I don't like being in Eastern time. It feels wrong. Everything happens too late in the day. That makes sense, hopefully.
Driving through the Panhandle, I caught glimpses of some of the craziest lightning I had ever seen. It looked like the clouds had veins, the lightning, the life force of the sky. But since I wasn't just constantly recording, I missed a lot of it, and I was starting to have storage issues at this time. Who'da thunk 3 weeks of videos would fill up memory? But I swear, every time after I stopped recording because I wasn't going to capture anything, the sky would light up and it would be bright as day for a second. What you're seeing now is the best of what I got, but there was a lot of failed attempts. I was driving through the dark for a while, but it was kinda nice. Sometimes a nighttime drive feels good, especially when you're the only one on a road. Bathroom frog. I had camped pretty much at the far end of the Florida Panhandle, along the Gulf Coast, and started out the morning by seeing where I had camped the night before. This is the Fort Pickens section of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, and it was a pretty nice area. This might be some of the best weather I've had on the trip. I mean, the sun's out, there's some clouds, there's a nice sea breeze. The air doesn't feel like it's clinging to my skin anymore. But, yeah, I mean, just look at this vibe. There's also not too many bugs around. I think I might finally be starting to understand why some people move to Florida. Well, time to leave it. We're finally leaving Florida today, heading over to New Orleans, where I'll be staying in a hostel. Which I'm sure to some people who know me are like, really, you're staying in a hostel in New Orleans? I'm like, yep. This is probably the most I'll be pushing my social limits on this trip. You know, maybe I'll make some new friends. I mean, if it gets weird enough, I will probably just bail. Reality, probably nothing will happen interesting. So it's time to leave the barrier islands behind and push onward to brave new frontiers like Pensacola. In pretty much every state, there is a street that looks like this.
Hurry back. Oh my goodness. It feels so good to be Florida. Sweet home Alabama. The sometime over the bridge was in Alabama, but now we're officially in Alabama.
I mean, it's not as if I'll see a sudden shift crossing into Alabama, but it's about the mentality.
As you may have guessed by me not crossing over on the interstate and driving on random rural roads, I found something weird, so let's go check it out.
It's a dinosaur sculpture in the woods. Nah, there's more than that. There's this whole marina with strange sculptures, like this lady in the water, and nearby there's the main attraction, Bamahenge. It's Stonehenge made out of plastic. Normally I love random roadside nonsense like this, but for some reason this made me feel hollow. For whatever reason, this is what broke me. Like, yep, it's Stonehenge in the middle of woods in Alabama. I've probably gone further out of the way for dumber, but something inside me died here. Maybe it's the fact I've been on the road so long, maybe it's the humidity, maybe it's my crushing loneliness I definitely did not push down. If I wasn't already halfway through, this might have been my breaking point. As positive as I was trying to stay, oh man, I was being worn down. Look, it's Mobile.
Mississippi.
Stopped at a rest area to say I've stepped foot in Mississippi. Now, what I did next, I don't entirely know why I did. It's probably due to some sense of dread related to staying in a hostel and trying to find ways to prolong my drive there, but I decided to drive along the main tourist strip along the Gulf Shore in Mississippi, and guess what? I took a wrong turn when trying to get there, but if I didn't, I wouldn't have seen this sign. Was it worth it? Leave a like if you think so. As for the touristy area, yeah, it's pretty touristy. I saw a big shark head.
As we crest this bridge, we cross over into Louisiana. There's the welcome sign. Fourth state of the day, from being stuck in one state for 4 days to visiting 4 states in 1 day. Let's go.
Then, right before New Orleans, was a bridge capable of competing with the Keys in terms of scale. I finally arrived in New Orleans, checked into my hostel, and yeah, nothing happened. When I planned this, I thought, you know what, maybe I will try to meet someone new and break out of my comfort zone. However, none of the guests were talking to each other, and I can't start a conversation. But would I let my crippling anxiety and simultaneous desire to not be alone ruin my time in New Orleans? I decided to go outside and even check out Bourbon Street. I immediately got overwhelmed and left. Trust me, I'm most disappointed of all to have squandered my time in New Orleans. Now, as I've said multiple times, this trip wasn't originally planned as a solo excursion, and there are some holdovers from that. Now, this whole experience was stepping out of my comfort zone, but some things were just a step too far, I guess. But maybe being on the road for 3 weeks and driving an average of 5 hours a day kind of drains a person, you know? This trip might look fun, but keep in mind you're seeing an edited version, and whatever time you have to travel, don't do this.
Well, I'm out of New Orleans. Driving through there, I did feel like I squandered my time. The hostel was nice, though. Very quiet, which I feel like is weird for a hostel. I don't know, I've never stayed in one before. But like my roommates, I guess you'd call them, pretty much didn't make any noise. We're going to Texas today, first time I've ever been in Texas, and you know, hopefully I'll spend more time doing stuff there.
I decided to take a little stop in Baton Rouge.
So I'm at Louisiana's old state capital right now. I'm also going to try and check out the new one, and
This is a pretty cool Capitol building. Yeah, a cool castle style, which definitely sets it apart from other Capitol buildings. From what I understand, the original actually burnt down, and this is a reconstruction, but why don't they go with this style again? It's a cool vibe, and, you know, once again, would set it apart from other buildings, but we'll see the new one later. I was wondering why this gorilla figurine was in the case, and it's because Rodney Fertile ran for mayor of New Orleans with the promise of a gorilla for the zoo, which feels like a running for class president type strategy. Like, free Wi-Fi for everyone, you know? Also, just one gorilla? Wouldn't they be lonely? I know I've been in Louisiana for less than a day, but I think the most Louisiana food is jambalaya. Of course, I also had to see the modern capital, so I took a little saunter over.
well, there's the new one. They took a page out of North Dakota's book, or maybe North Dakota took a page out of their book, where it's like, oh, old Capitol burned down, build a big tower instead. Yeah, it'd be cool if you go up it. You might be able to. I don't know. I gotta get going. But I will say one last thing. This is probably the Capitol building most shaped like a penis. In Texas now. Yeah, Texas. Now the largest state I haven't been to is New Mexico. It's 860. That's the other side of Texas, and I'll be driving that over the next few days. Can't wait.
So I had made plans to get dinner in Houston, and when I stopped in Baton Rouge, I had about 6 hours before the scheduled meeting time. It said it would take about 4 hours to get to Houston, so I had 2 hours to spare when I parked. I figured I'd check out Baton Rouge for about an hour and still have an hour to spare. When I got back in my car, an hour later, I had negative 30 minutes to spare. This is because there were traffic jams in Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, Beaumont, Houston, and Houston. My bad, I should have planned for over 2 hours of traffic to get added. Rookie mistake on my part. I met up with some people from the GeoGuessr community in Houston and had a conversation for the first time since New York. Houston was definitely a city I went to. I got the long ass corridor because the elevator is next to my room again. What a beautiful Texas morning. We've got parking lot, highway, the Texas flag. That day, I started with an establishment I had heard tale of and seen throughout the South. A chain known only by one word, Buc-ee's.
Just got out of Buc-ee's. Never have I seen an establishment that exemplifies the 7 deadly sins so well. I mean, greed and gluttony are self-explanatory, then pride, the way this beaver's face is stamped on every product and all across Texas. Sloth, because everyone in there is moving so slowly, except the employees, and that can be wrath-inducing, but also insulting Buc-ee's can invigorate wrath from Texans sometimes, which ties back into pride. And then envy, because people are envious of Buc-ee's. I don't know. And then lust, because beavers. You know what I mean. People want to fuck the beaver.
Okay, jokes aside, I get when people say it's not just a gas station because there's a chunk in there that feels like a Hobby Lobby. I don't see the hype though. Although apparently they pay their workers a living wage, so I can't hate on that. In Texas, I was feeling road tripping energy at such high levels. Levels I hadn't felt since the Midwest. Obviously, what I'm talking about is purely vibes and in my head, but what I think contributes is that outside of the big cities, there's some real distance between towns. Like, there is a distinct beginning and end to many of them, and you don't feel that as often on the East Coast. I'm a big fan of driving through the middle of nowhere, if you didn't already know. This billboard, though, was just confidently wrong. You don't know me. I'm getting a view right now. Speaking of billboards, as I was driving to San Antonio, I saw the most riveting advertisement for Natural Bridge Caverns. My thought process here for going was, I haven't been to a cave on this trip, so I'll add it. The Natural Bridge Caverns had 2 tours available. I don't remember the name of the one that I went on, but I'll walk you through. I guess that's the Natural Bridge. Not a lot to say there. It was above one of the entrances, but that's not the tour I was going on. The cave I went in actually wasn't a naturally open cave. Someone just found it one day as they were drilling a well, I think? And they were like, hey, crazy theory. There might be a cave down here. And they drilled down, put a camera down there, and there was. The first chamber was pretty cool. Definitely one of the larger chambers I've seen in a cave. I love looking at all the different formations throughout. Then you walk through a small pathway and they told us to sit down. It's like, this is where they're going to turn off the lights because literally every cave tour does this. After that, you arrive at a large room called... Guess what it's called? If you've been on a cave tour, I swear that every cave tour calls their, most empty room this. It's the ballroom. I don't mean to sound jaded, I genuinely like looking at the formations. I mean, look at my stellar photography, but a lot of the information is pretty rinse and repeat. You know, you've been on one cave tour, you've kind of heard most of them. There's usually some different stories about how they found the cave. You know, all these caves kind of form the same, but they do create unique patterns in formations in the rock. Also, the tour was nearly over at this point, and we had only seen 3 rooms. However, something brand new to me was the light and sound show they had. On the side of the ballroom was this pocket where they rigged up a light show with accompanying music, and it was definitely the most unique part of the experience. Actually, I take it back. What came after might be the most unique thing I've seen in a cave. The tour guide kept talking about taking the BAT out of the cave, which stands for Belt Assisted Transport. We had to watch a 2-minute safety video about the BAT. Y'all, it's just a magic carpet. It's kind of neat, but they told us we couldn't film while riding, and the other people on the tour kind of seemed like narcs. Now I can finally get to San Antonio, and the parking garage had a spiral drive, so that was a real treat. I couldn't quite recall what I was going to see in San Antonio. There's something here that I'm supposed to remember. No. The Alamo. The second most famous attraction is the San Antonio Riverwalk, and yeah, it's definitely a very touristy trap place, but it's one of the nicer tourist trap places. At least there's some shade. However, once you get off the main stretch, it was a nice place for a little stroll. I went to the canal locks before turning around and then getting some truck tacos, and yeah, they're pretty good.
Look at the size of this. Oh god, there's stuff in my chin. This is the vibe I wanted.
Despite being alone, I wasn't having that bad of a time wandering around. I also found this pink dungeon area on the edge of the Riverwalk. San Antonio also has a tall tower with a viewing deck, and I decided that I would actually go in a tower for once because I love getting a view of the land and haven't been able to do that yet in an urban setting. The main reason I went up this tower specifically was mostly because it was half the cost of every other tall building with a viewing deck. So I timed it that I was able to catch the sunset from up above, and yeah, it was pretty nice, minus being maybe the most windy place on the trip. San Antonio doesn't really have an iconic skyline though, so there really isn't too much to see from up here. There's the stadium and some hotels, but really the only iconic building is the Alamo, and that's like 2 stories tall. I don't want to sound too negative, it was still a neat time. This day was how I imagined the big loop would be in my head. I covered some ground, made an impromptu stop, saw a famous landmark, explored a new city, sampled the local cuisine, and saw a sunset from a good vantage point. I mean, I knew this wasn't going to be what every day was like, but the amount of days that had gone how I imagined they would was kind of shockingly low, which could have been a good thing, but
Alright, day 28. Today I'm going to be driving across West Texas. You know, when planning this out, I was like, this is going to be one of those days that's just like, this is going to be hell. But now, after driving through so many cities and like densely populated areas where like, even if you're not in a city, traffic's still quite a bit, I think it'll be nice to just have like some nothingness.
Oh yeah, it's an 8-hour long drive, not including stops. Buckle in for an edited recounting.
Today's just a long driving day, so I figured it's probably the best time to try Whataburger. My feelings about regional burger chains are like, they're all slightly better than like nationwide burger chains. I think they're all overhyped. Will my opinion be changed on regional fast food burgers? No, and this one might be the worst one yet. Like, I know I'm at Whataburger at 10:30 a.m., but it's like, what is everyone else doing here?
I was not expecting to be vibing with the scenery as much as I was. It was kind of like a little taste of what it would be like to return to the mountains.
Now that we're almost getting into the desert, temperatures are starting to heat up. I think I'll be fine. I think I can handle the temperature difference. Isn't that right, Hank Hill? Oh, that's right. You know, I don't get out to West Texas too often, so seeing how different it is from Arlen, it really makes you wonder how much beauty God put into one state. That's a good point, Hank. Texas does have quite a diverse landscape.
I don't think the heat was affecting me too much. Why do you say that? After about 4 hours, the initial excitement of driving through the middle of nowhere kinda wore off, and I was starting to feel it, when in the distance...
What do I see? A mountain off in the... Okay, it's gone.
Passed through Fort Stockton because they have a Roadrunner statue. Early in the trip, this would have been a real stop, but now I'm not even getting out of my car.
My goodness, can you see them? Can you see them in the distance? There's mountains. After weeks, there's finally mountains.
Storm clouds, you know what that means. I'm gonna try and see if I can get some lightning on camera. Place your bets now. Did I manage to get any lightning strikes on video? No.
Been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. Great idea. Walk up a little deserty hill when I've been near sea level for the past 3 weeks. Why am I hiking in the desert in 5 p.m.? This is why. Because mountains, and I've missed mountains so much. Oh, it's been so long. No way. I'm finally back. Let's go. And everything is all right.
So after driving through a very empty portion of Texas, I was greeted by El Paso, which is fucking huge. At least relative to what the day's been so far, it's truly jarring to go from no towns of even like 10,000 people to a city of over 700,000. I mean, I guess I started in San Antonio, but like...
There is the state border, and that means New Mexico, state number 30, has been entered. Last new state of the trip for me, and that means also now the largest state I've never been to is Kansas. Even if I wanted to explore Las Cruces, it is coming down. I ain't going out in a desert storm, are you kidding me?
Let's get going through the desert once again. Never mind, I forgot to get gas, gotta turn around.
It is day 29. Which means that it's week 5. I've been doing this for 4 full weeks going into week 5. And today we're going to be crossing through New Mexico and then all the way across Arizona. So it's going to be a long day. Yesterday was like a little bit deserty, especially, you know, towards the end, getting in the desert. But today, it's all desert, baby. So you know what that means. Been through the desert on a horse with no name. What the fuck? What the hell is a U.S. Border Patrol inspection station?
Now, this is something I had heard of, but I was caught off guard in the moment by the military checkpoint. The only thing they did was ask me if I was the only one in the car. I said yeah, then they waved me through, and I have a strong hunch that the experience is not as easy for everyone else who passes through. I don't really know how to return to the usual nonsense tone.
I think I have to stop for Desert Bot.
The home of Desert Bot was behind this facade of a fake Wild West town. We are so back. This is the kind of shit I'm used to. Just don't look them in the eyes. The inside was a store mostly filled with junk, there's no other way to describe it, with Desert Bot being tucked away in the back like a dirty secret. It's crazy that both big loop trips feature a giant statue that's supposed to be Bumblebee, but has a legally distinct name. I guess this one is pretty legally distinct looking too. That ain't Bumblebee, that's Stumbling Insect. I can't get over this billboard. New Mexico got one relevant thing in pop culture, and lucky for them, it's good. Soon after I started seeing displays for The Thing. I've heard of The Thing before. No, not either of those. But if you haven't, oh, just you wait. In the meantime, there's nothing out here. Sure, there's some mountains in the distance, but things we're stopping for are few and far between.
No more bridge. Goodbye.
Saw some warnings for a dust storm, and there was one swirling in the distance, although I'm sure this is probably nothing in the grand scheme. It's just like driving through a snowstorm, but with tiny rocks instead of snow.
Arizona time! Well, due to the fact that Arizona doesn't use daylight saving, whatever, who fucking cares? They're always in Mountain Standard Time, but since it's daylight time right now, it's effectively Pacific time, so I spent basically one night in Mountain Time on this trip. Now, I don't know of any Arizona-specific foods, but like a fitting beverage. What if Arizona iced tea isn't even like from Arizona?
It's not. I passed through Bowie, which claimed to be the pistachio capital of Arizona, and I stopped at a jerky store.
Are they implying they have shark jerky?
They didn't, but it was here in the middle of the Arizona desert, disaster struck. I'm kidding, I just need to put some oil in. I didn't take any, oh no, my car broke down videos in the moment, because I didn't need to try and do a fake out, but then actually get stranded in the Arizona desert. But I'll do a mini fake out now. While I was waiting, I did get some food from the food truck outside the jerky place.
Like, if these had good texture, maybe a 10 out of 10 fry. Or maybe I'm hallucinating in the desert, I don't know. Can you hallucinate flavor? So I think I like the desert in theory, you know, I really like the aesthetics, I like the big open space and the mountains, but I've spent most of my desert time in the high desert in spring, so actual desert in summer, I'm like, oh, that's right. It's the desert. But we continue. In the desert, you can't remember your name because there ain't no one for to give you no pain. It's pretty hot out, right? Isn't that right? Hank Hill from the TV show King of the Hill. Oh, I remember there was a day like this in Arlen once. This heat reminds me of when the Megalomart exploded, and then I almost died. That's true, that did happen.
Remember a couple of minutes ago when I mentioned The Thing? Well, I had finally arrived. Tucked away in the back of this thrift store in a gas station is one of the strangest attractions I have ever seen. Also, you have to pay to see it, which I didn't know. I'm not joking. If you think there's any chance of you visiting this and you don't want it spoiled, skip ahead. I think it will improve the experience. For those sticking around, the immediate first thing you're greeted by is an alien riding a dinosaur. So the basic premise is, what if aliens were around during the time of dinosaurs? What if what you were about to see is true? Yeah, man, what if? Also, there's secret jackalopes. I only found 2 out of 3. There's so much lore to the aliens and dinosaurs here. Basically, there's 2 clans of aliens, the Milzilrath and the Amatria. I'm not gonna use those names the whole time, don't worry. Basically, 1 clan good, 1 bad. There's so many steps we're skipping over. Like, okay, we know aliens visited dinosaurs, and obviously we know about the 2 clans and how they started a war and that they had technology-controlled dinosaurs. This is all obvious, but why did they start fighting? Okay, stop. We need to back up a bit. What on earth makes you think aliens visited dinosaurs in the first place? This is answered later and seeing some guy drew some circles and lines and some dinosaur bones. I paid $5 plus tax just to read fan fiction. The worst part is that the dinosaur models are pretty good. There is no one in here. It is so empty.
No one else wants to see the thing.
Oh, I almost forgot. Aliens found a separate species called cave dwellers that could have become humans. Also, basically all human wars were these two alien factions fighting each other. Then the what if questions get really mundane. What if this buggy was used by generals during the Civil War? That seems plausible. I don't know. I feel like you could answer that. What if you had to take this across the country on your next road trip? That'd be pretty rough, I guess. Also, aliens invented a nuclear bomb, I guess, and are implied to have done 9/11? Hey, did you remember that this attraction is called The Thing? Where's that at? So here's The Thing. The Thing is like a weird little fake mummy thing, for lack of a better word, and it's probably the least interesting thing about this place. Just one of those old school hoaxes where you just mix some bones up, call it an alien, and charge people to see it. Actually, maybe don't spend your money here. Perhaps my favorite section of text, though, is at the end where it says, what if the best way to hide the truth is in plain sight in an obscure roadside stop in Arizona? Which I can't tell if they're giving a wink and a nudge, because, yeah, obviously the secret to Earth is in the middle of a desert attached to a gas station. Which is probably true, actually, but not this gas station. Enough of that, though. I've got to move on to the next stop. Another national park, Saguaro. Cactus is probably one of my favorite plants. I don't know why. I guess I just like all the weird and funky shapes it can turn into. Also, being able to survive such extreme conditions is pretty neat. If you don't know, these big cacti are known as saguaros, and they can grow absolutely massive. They can also live for over 200 years old. In fact, it takes them about 50 years to sprout their first arm.
Now that's a saguaro.
This cactus garden just outside the visitor center was neat, but also one of the only trails that was recommended at the time since it was a balmy 110 degrees outside and getting hotter. This has completely shifted my perception of temperature. New heats were felt on that day.
It's time for a loop in a loop. We're going on the Bajada Loop Drive to see the Sus picnic area. I saw that marker on Google Maps and thought someone was being a troll, but no, it's real.
The Sus picnic area was just like a picnic area, but man, that would have done numbers in 2020.
So this is probably the hottest temperature I've ever experienced, and I'm about to go on a hike. Wouldn't it be funny if I came all this way and then died due to completely preventable reasons? All I had to do was just not get out of the car and go for a hike, but here I am.
It was about 1/5 of a mile to get to these rocks, but it was maybe the longest time I've taken to cross that distance. But I got to see these petroglyphs, so that was neat. For those unaware, the word petroglyph refers to these carvings in the rock, and the word translates to stone writing. And it's not to be confused with pictographs, which would be painted onto the rock. My phone was honestly probably in worse shape than I was, though. Overall, Saguaro was a pretty cool looking park. I would say it does feel kind of uniform since every hill is covered in saguaros, but saguaros are cool. Probably better to visit not during the summer, though, but soon it's just always going to be summer, so... The ego on this beaver, man.
Felt good to be out of the rain.
Do you think we could listen to something else? Oh, I'm sorry, Hank. Do you not enjoy my music selection? No, it's a good song. It's just that, maybe some variety would, help out. I don't think I like your attitude there, Hank. To be fair to Hank, we have been listening to the same song for quite a while now. Silence, Werner, be gone!
Okay, maybe the heat was getting to me a little bit. The last part of the drive, though, was a lot more empty, less nearby mountains to look at. The sun looked absolutely massive. Holy hell, I forgot about this. But after a long day of driving through the desert, I got to my hotel, which was once again right across from a Cracker Barrel. I swear I didn't plan this. That night I was staying in Yuma, which is right across from the California border, so first thing tomorrow would be entering another state.
Right up ahead, being covered up by the truck. Boom, California, Imperial County. Wait, California? I can't be in California. Oh God. Oh, whoa! Well, that's enough of that. Anyways, onward to the center of the universe.
Next time on The Big Loop 2.
This year's Try to Eat Melon Challenge.
I feel like drowning.
Thanks for watching part 5 of The Big Loop 2. I'd really appreciate if you liked and subscribed. It lets me know you're enjoying the series. And, you know, subscribing helps make sure you won't miss the last 2 parts. I have a feeling this will be the first one to get a dislike, mostly because of the things I said about Buc-ee's and Whataburger. I don't know, I hope people don't take that too personally. Of course, I, appreciate everyone who's watching these videos, and, yeah, it's crazy that, officially in the second half